Okay, Malik Willis is probably going to start for the Green Bay Packers in week 2. So what has his journey been? Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans joins us for an Expert Tuesday. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Tyler Rowland on the show today to talk about Malik Willis. He has seen him, followed him, covered him, spent hours podcasting about him. And so that makes him a perfect person to get into what he can be in Green Bay. You may not be surprised, or you may be surprised to learn that Tyler is actually pretty bullish on what Malik Willis can do in Green Bay. Let's start, though, with the last point I want to put on the Philadelphia Eagles game. We'll talk to Lily Zhao about it a little bit tomorrow on Zhao You Doing as well, but we've got so much other stuff to talk to. I just feel like we need to, we'll put a button on it here. The biggest takeaway that I had, third day now, we're not actually 3 days out, but second day, you have your instant reaction, your second day reaction, and then your third day reaction. This is how I formulate it in my brain, but it's, you react to the thing, and then you sit with it, and you have, okay, well, here's maybe, I was looking at it this wrong way, but here's what it is. And then, okay, now you've amalgamated all those things together. What's important? And to me, it's the biggest question. What was the biggest question I had coming into this game? Is Jeff Hafley going to attack Jalen Hurts? He didn't. In fact, as we talked about the other day, Dari Karaher from Packer Report noted Jeff Hafley actually blitzed at a lower rate than the Packers' season average last year. This was against a team who struggled against the blitz. And Sheil Kapadia from The Athletic and the Philly Special pointed this out, where Jalen Hurts and the Eagles really struggled. And it was the structure of the offense. It wasn't just Jalen Hurts. That keeps being the response that I see. Well, it wasn't Jalen Hurts who struggled. It was the offense didn't give him answers. Well, that's not entirely true. It's partially true. It's not entirely true. Jalen Hurts went 6 of 7 against the blitz with a touchdown on Friday. That's really good. He played really, really well. And frankly, I would not expect that to continue. He's not going to be 6 for 7 with a touchdown against the blitz every week. The Packers caught a little bit of an outlier there. Now, he also threw 2 bad interceptions. It could have thrown a pick 6. On a third one, he had more turnover-worthy plays than Jordan Love. The Packers and the Eagles played a very similar game in a lot of ways. Someone had to win. But as I come out of this, I can attribute a lot of the stuff to footing, offensive, some of the inconsistencies there, just penalties, sloppiness of the field, by the way, that can make you hold. Of week 1, Jordan Love inconsistent. I think the footing affected him and his ability to feel comfortable planting in the pocket and driving throws. But the note that Sheil Kapadia made was big blitzes last year were the problem. 6 rushers. Not when you send 5, you got 5 to block 5. You can usually account for that kind of stuff. It's when it's overload blitz time. When it's everyone's coming and you don't have either enough guys or you have only enough with a back to block everybody. As Sheil noted, the Packers did not do that. They showed all-out pressure. They showed 6-man pressures. They didn't send it. In fact, there was one play where they had a really cool play design where they dropped I believe it was Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt, but it was their two defensive tackles. They end up bringing pressure. Jalen Hurts gets to his hot, but it is a route in the flat to A.J. Brown. Jair Alexander is there to tackle him 4 yards short of the sticks, but slips because the field was a shambles. And it turns into a 20-yard gain on third down when it would have been, and it would have been, it would have had to be a sure tackle on the spot. But it was not like tush-push territory where it's like, well, they probably would have just gotten it anyway. The Packers played more conservatively on defense than I thought they would. And not just would, than I thought was prudent, than I thought was wise. Again, I don't like to use the word should. I thought the smart move was prove that they are able to handle the blitz better than they did last year. And for whatever reason, and I hope Jeff Hafley gets asked about it this week. Why is that the case? Why did that happen that way? One potential solution, and Matt LaFleur hinted at this yesterday. Edgerrin Cooper is going to play more. I thought he looked really good in limited action. I went back. NFL Pro is this new platform that the NFL has. They blend the next-gen stats, all of the tracking data with all 22. And you can just type in Edgerrin Cooper, and I could watch all 11 snaps that he had on the all 22. It's such a cool platform. They're not paying me to say this, but I'll balance it out with this. The old platform stunk. The old Game Pass was unworkable. It was terrible. And now they replaced it. It's like you used to drive a Honda Civic with 350,000 miles and, the bumper's falling off, and they replaced it with a 911. Like I'm talking about a Porsche, don't be weird. Edgerrin Cooper needs to play more and is going to play more. And one of the big things that he is going to be able to do right away is affect the game coming downhill as a blitzer. Now, I was very impressed with what he was able to do in coverage. There was a play where he takes 2 steps forward on a run fake. Hard to say if he got fooled or if he's just playing his responsibilities. I tweeted out that he got fooled. Maybe he didn't get fooled. You're supposed to take those read steps. Maybe he got fooled, maybe he didn't, but he realizes it. He gets to the tight end, gets hands-on without holding, and carries that tight end up the field. Something that he rarely had to do at Texas A&M. They were playing a lot of, not even spot drop zone, just sort of like spy zone, where you're waiting for the quarterback to break the pocket and Edgerrin Cooper can fly downhill and make a tackle. Against a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, or maybe, for example, Jalen Hurts, he's exactly the kind of linebacker you'd like to have on the field. He's exactly the kind of linebacker you would have liked to have on the field on Friday. I would anticipate he is no doubt going to be the third linebacker with Isaiah McDuffie and Quay Walker in base packages. And I would anticipate at the very least a rotation in nickel packages. Now, I think there may be some, maybe on early downs, you see Isaiah McDuffie out there, but maybe you see Cooper. Maybe they're playing more traditional sets. This is a Colts team that they like to play heavy personnel. So he was going to be on the field anyway. But I'd like to see him more in the middle of the field, not on the line of scrimmage sort of Sam linebacker kind of stuff, although I think he can do that. If you were going to build a prototype of a linebacker who could chase down and actually handle someone like Anthony Richardson, it would be someone very similar to Edgerrin Cooper. Size, speed, power. I mean, he made a play where he scraped down the line of scrimmage and met Saquon Barkley in the hole, and he delivered a blow. I mean, it was a thud tackle. Isaiah McDuffie's just not doing that. He's a nice player, but he's just not doing that. He's not impacting the game in the same way. And so if you're going to lean into that blitzing more, and that's why it was weird. We talked about this on the show. Third down, red zone. That's when Jeff Hafley likes to just release the dogs. He didn't do it. I played more quarters, I think, to guard against the big play. We saw him play a bunch of man coverage, a bunch of single high. Didn't see him disguise nearly as much. I think These game plans are going to evolve as he finds his footing in the NFL as a defensive coordinator. Remember, he hasn't done this in the NFL, hasn't coached in the NFL in a long time. I think he's a really smart guy, a really hard worker. And I think with the help of Matt LaFleur, they will find the right balance here. But they got to find it. All right, let's talk to our pal, Tyler Rowland, about Malik Willis, new starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. That's next on Locked On Packers. You guys aren't going to believe me, but it's true. Just before I jumped on here, I was talking to my wife about hair loss. Seriously, just a moment of honesty and vulnerability for me. It's something that I think about. It's something that I worry about. I'm on camera every day, and I want to make sure that I'm looking my best. And if I'm not, or if I feel like I'm not, or if you're like me and you're getting older and you're starting to see the gray on the side here and you're worried about it, or if you are losing your hair, Hims can be an answer for you. They provide a range of hair loss treatments that work all from the comfort of your couch. Hims make treating hair loss simple with doctor-trusted treatment options and clinically proven ingredients that can regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, so if you feel like you're losing a part of yourself with your hair loss, get Hims to get your confidence back. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedonnfl. That's HIMS.com/lockedonnfl for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/lockedonnfl. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. The new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland, who you're about to hear from, kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in Locked On's local experts, that's me, and you get unprecedented NFL insight. Hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Joining me now, you heard from him when the Packers first acquired Malik Willis. Now, Malik Willis is going to be the starting quarterback, so we had to come back and have an extended conversation with our pal Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans and, of course, the new Locked On NFL. The madman is on Locked On Packers. Tyler, let's get into Malik Willis because he came to Tennessee, and I think at the time when they brought him in, there was some excitement over what he could become. Let's just start there. What were the early returns such that you can remember them, understanding that, you know, what has happened since colors our memory of these things in a lot of ways?
For sure. Well, I mean, at least the initial reaction for me was I was excited about the Malik Willis pick. I mean, obviously, looking back now, we know that it should have never been this way, but some people were talking about Malik Willis being an early first-round pick because of the talent that he has. I mean, we've seen, I'm sure you've talked about some of these things. That throw that he made on the sideline early in the preseason was, I mean, that's electric arm talent. He really does have all the arm strength that you need. I've seen accurate throws from Malik Willis at times like that, where he's literally dotting wide receivers' hands on the sideline. Obviously, the running ability, there was some conversation that, hey, could Malik Willis play running back in the NFL? I think that's probably a little bit overstated, but he definitely has some really good mobility and some really good ability in the run game. I would imagine that Matt LaFleur is going to incorporate some design QB run here. That's the only logical thing to do. So just early on, looking at him, you knew that he would take some time. You knew it was a development project, but just the raw talent and the raw ability he had absolutely had Titans fans excited. For at the time, Ryan Tannehill was entrenched as the starter. No Will Levis on the team yet. So you're thinking, all right, give Malik Willis a couple of years to develop and you might have something here because the talent that you see does pop off the screen.
What are the chances that Malik Willis was just not given the tools that he needed to succeed, particularly early on when it seemed like in some of the first action that he saw, Mike Vrabel was just petrified of letting him do anything?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I don't think that you can say it's all on the Titans for not giving him a good.
No. I'm not suggesting that either. I'm not suggesting that either.
just, there are some Titans fans who say that, Malik Willis was given nothing to develop. So it's not necessarily I'm saying you're saying that, but those are conversations. But I think it is somewhere in the middle, because the reality is we can all sit here and acknowledge a Mike Vrabel team is not a great offensive environment. Like, that's cut and dry. I don't think you got to be any kind of expert to say that. 3 out of the 6 years Vrabel was the head coach, they scored 17 points or less. So the offensive coaching, the offensive development, the offensive environment that Malik Willis was in is absolutely the polar opposite of quarterback development land compared to, think about the Packers. The Packers get the absolute best out of their young offensive linemen. They've developed Jordan Love. Like, it would not be a stretch to say that Malik Willis is in a polar opposite environment, comparing the Mike Vrabel environment for a young quarterback compared to where he's at now. Now, Malik Willis has his own part in this, that he has to fulfill his duties here. But when you're talking about an environment, I don't think that it would be a stretch to say that Malik Willis was in one of the worst environments in the NFL to develop a young quarterback. And you add in how much development Malik Willis needed, and it's no wonder that he's where he's at right now. And I'll say this, Malik Willis made incredible strides from where he was under Mike Vrabel just in the one offseason that he had with Brian Callahan, and Callahan is known as a quarterback guy. So while I think that Malik has it's like you could say Malik Willis has improved, but if we went from a 1 to a 2, that's improvement. But Jordan Love is a 7 or an 8. You know what I mean? Like, it's still a big gap, but I think Malik Willis has improved with better quarterback tutelage and with even a better situation maybe in Green Bay. I think it stands to reason that he could get even better, and he's a guy who could take big jumps really fast by getting better coaching than he's ever had before.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the thought when the Packers brought him in, like, hey, let's get him into our system. Let's put him with our coaches, with Tom Clements, who made huge strides with Jordan Love, and see what this guy can be in a year. They didn't think they were going to have to play him in week 2, of course. And so this is fast tracking his development a little bit in that way. I went back and watched some of the 2018 tape, some of the tape I watched in 2019 of the Matt LaFleur offense in Tennessee with Marcus Mariota. And I felt like, hey, there's a lot of stuff here that is translatable to what the Packers could try and put together with Malik Willis, which is just another way of saying this is in the Matt LaFleur offense. This could be potentially baked in with the quarterback run game, and even adding some of the layers in the preseason. We saw Malik Willis running like these quarterback sweeps, cornerback lead plays, where you see him on the edge. He is a dynamic runner. Because you got to see the Matt LaFleur experience up close even before I did. Do you see what I see, where there is carryover in what they did with Marcus Mariota, and then to a lesser extent Blaine Gabbert, and what they could potentially think about doing with Malik Willis?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially if you want to get heavy play action, get him out onto the perimeter, give him some of those bootlegs where he does have that option of, hey, I could toss this 5-yarder, or I could just do what I do best and run. I feel like, back to the Mike Vrabel thing, Mike Vrabel one time took him out of a preseason game early because he ran instead of throwing a pass. I think Green Bay is going to be like, if you want to run. Like, there's no, like, just play. You know what I mean? That's the best way to get Malik Willis to lead you to a couple of victories until Jordan Love can get back. I just let him go out there and play, and getting him onto the perimeter with that heavy play action, getting some of those bootlegs in, and then incorporating some of that quarterback design run, which, again, Matt LaFleur has that in the bag. I mean, you don't want to do that with Jordan Love as much as you want to do it with Malik Willis, but it's there and it's within the design of the offense. I don't think that Matt LaFleur would have gone out and traded for Malik Willis to be the backup quarterback if he didn't know in the back of his mind, hey, if we got to play him, I got a plan for how to do this. So I think with what we've seen, like you said, from LaFleur in 18 with Marcus Mariota, who was an athletic quarterback, into the idea to trade for Malik Willis, into now being with LaFleur, I think they absolutely will have an offense designed to help him, and that'll be getting him out on the perimeter, getting him clean pockets, a little max protect off the play action so we can clearly see things. I think that Matt LaFleur will put together a better plan than Malik Willis has ever had going into a game.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the case for if you believe that the Packers can make this work, it's because of what Matt LaFleur can do, and then you believe in the talent of Malik Willis, which it seems like most people do. The question is, can he draw within the lines enough? Or is it going to look like, my 15-month-old, coloring all over the piece of paper? And that's not even a shot at Malik Willis. He may just he's been in Green Bay for 4.5 minutes. Like trying to get him to be on the same page with everyone else is going to take some time. I have to ask you, the elephant in the room is Mason Rudolph. This is a quarterback that we've seen be bad in the NFL, and Malik Willis could not beat him out. What happened there?
Well, I got to push back a little, Pete. I wouldn't say Mason Rudolph is 8-4-1, led the Steelers to a couple of victories.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that.
It's some 13-10 games that they were playing where TJ Watt gets 4 fumble recoveries and 18 sacks in the game.
Well, you say that, but that's what the Packers are going to have to do with Malik Willis. They're going to have to win that way. Right. And if they win, you're going to be like, good job, everybody. Malik got it done. Yeah. Listen, Malik does have his areas of concern. He pats the ball a lot, Pete. Watch, right before he throws, he'll take an extra hitch and pat the ball. And his timing is not quite
decisive.
Yes, he's not decisive enough. He isn't clear with what he's seeing. He has a tendency to hesitate a little bit to make throws. And you do that in the NFL, you're going to throw picks. You're going to have balls batted up in the air. And I think that is his major concern, is seeing things and just letting it rip. He was a bit too hesitant as a Titan. But again, you come from Liberty, then you go into a Mike Vrabel offense. You probably aren't going to see things very clearly at the NFL level at that point. So if he can get over that hesitancy and just let it rip, just throw the ball when it's open, then I think the Packers will have a chance to win some of these games until Love is back.
All right, we'll finish up with our pal Tyler Rowland here in just a second on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. You want to drop a bet? Well, how about the Packers and the Colts this weekend? Do you like Malik Willis and his ability to manufacture something here? The Packers went from 3 or 4 point favorites, depending on where you're looking, to now 3.5 point underdogs. I spoke to someone who told me odds makers have Jordan Love as about a 6 point differential. That means they think Malik Willis is actively bad. So if you think you can make a little money on that idea, hey, FanDuel is the place to do it. Visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. For your second listen, go check out the new Locked On NFL. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman, Tyler Rowland, who you are hearing is a madman, kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins. It's the new Locked On NFL. It's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL or wherever you get podcasts. Brian Gutekunst spoke about the overlap that they saw, at least that they saw overlap in what Malik Willis was being asked to do. Mm-hmm. And so Matt LaFleur in 2018 comes in with this Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan tree scheme, right?
Right.
He adapted it to his personnel more than, that offense looked pretty different than some of the other ones that, we were trying to watch around the league. But then Arthur Smith takes that job and he evolves it, right? And looks really good doing it. But there's still a lot of core LaFleurian, Shanahan, McVayan principles in there.
Absolutely.
He leaves. Todd Downing comes in. They got him to run I know your favorite, but they brought him in to try and do the Arthur Smith, Matt LaFleur kind of thing. Now he's out of there, and you bring in Brian Callahan, who is from the Zach Taylor, Sean McVay end of this. I know you're people's heads are spinning, but the moral of the story is he was actually in a framework that is relatively similar overall to what the Packers were trying to do here, even if some of the verbiage is a little different. Apparently it evolved and changed in Tennessee, but overlap wise, do you feel like, hey, they're not going to have to do anything different? They can call their stuff basically, so long as Malik has got the verbiage down.
Yeah. I mean, the Titans have play action, wide zone, bootleg in their playbook right now. They're still running it right now with Will Levis. And obviously there's carryover from all those things that you mentioned, where in the previous years, Malik Willis was doing those things with the play action to Derrick Henry is the idea, and then rolling out backside, play action on a duo, set up in the pocket with max protect and hit, you know what I mean? Crossing routes over the middle. There are things that the words might be different and the terminology might be different, but the concept and the idea of what you're trying to do would be very similar. So that, I think, does give, and again, this goes back to, that's why I think Green Bay was willing to trade for him. It seemed like a bit of a shock to everybody in Tennessee, but with all of the things that we talked about that could be considered carryover, I think that made it easier on Green Bay to take this chance. They knew this ahead of time, that things would be similar for him. So it's not like, you know, you're taking a circle and trying to put it in the square peg or vice versa. Like, there are some similarities here of what they want to do and what he has done, and that should make it an easier runway for him to get going.
Paint me a picture. Draw me a roadmap here for Malik Willis. What is a winning game? I understand. Okay, win a 13-10 game. Yeah, sure, that would be nice.
Yeah.
But what does an offense look like with Malik Willis in Green Bay? I mean, I know that you're not, you know, necessarily up to date on who their second and third string offensive guards might be. Although I know you got some Packer fans in your family. Shout out to the crew. Shout out to all those people. But what do you think that looks like in Green Bay?
Well, number one, you got to run the football. Yeah. You can't ask Malik Willis to drop back 40 times and win the game with his arm. Green Bay has to find a way to run the football. I also think you need a heavy dose of that play action. Like I said, give Malik a clean pocket. Just let him think about what he's seeing and not what's around him. Make sure that it's not muddy around him so he doesn't have to worry about that, because he gets a little frazzled when things start to break down. He's not used to just standing in the pocket and making the throw. So you got to give him a clean pocket, and the play action and the run game tie together there. But I would also throw in a heavy dose of screen and quarterback run. Yeah. I mean, short yardage situations, use his legs. It's kind of one of those catch-22s of, hey, you don't want, like Cam Newton. People are like, hey, you don't want to run Cam Newton a ton because he'll get hurt. But if you don't run Cam Newton a ton, are you getting max value out of Cam Newton? Right. It's like, you can't do that. So,
and he's really good at Cam Newton when you run him. So, like, why would you take away one of his best things? Yeah,
exactly that. So to me, it's like, you don't want Malik Willis to get hurt. You don't want to go to your third string quarterback, Sean Clifford, you know, emergency, whatever it happens to be, whatever they decide to do there. But at the end of the day, Malik Willis not running the football is not the best version of Malik Willis. So if you run the football well with your running backs and your standard run game, you play action off of that to give him clear designed looks to maybe get some chunk plays in the pass game where you're manufacturing that space for your wide receivers rather than Malik having to, you know, fit it into tight windows or throw with anticipation and all these things that are kind of places he's not ready to go yet, in my opinion. Give him clear, defined reads with design chunk plays off play action, run the football to keep him in manageable situations, and then in short yardage, and when teams aren't expecting it, you throw in the quarterback run, and I think you got to rely on the screen game. The screen game is short, little, quick, easy throws for Malik Willis where he doesn't have to read the defense. He just knows what he's doing. He can throw it with accuracy and get it there, and then you get it to your playmakers in space and let them create maybe some of these yards after catch chunk plays so it doesn't have to be all Malik reading the defense and going through progressions. So you want to minimize that sort of stuff, highlight the other stuff, play action, run game, quarterback run, screen game. You do that and you play some decent defense. The Packers are going to have a chance to win a game, just hopefully not in week 3.
Well, that's the fun part of this, Tyler, is we're going to get to do this in a week. I'm talking about Malik Willis potentially playing against his old team, a little revenge spot.
I'll be there.
So I'll be at the great game. So it'll that part of this will be fun. Let me then switch gears a little bit, because the Colts, we're talking about an AFC South divisional opponent. So I'm thinking that there's actually a benefit here, even though this is an uncommon opponent for the Packers. They just played the Eagles. Shane Steichen comes from Philadelphia. They're going to see a lot of the same kinds of concepts with Anthony Richardson. They're going to have to deal with some of the mush rush stuff with him. The big plays is what you're trying to guard against. And you have a defense in Gus Bradley where you know what you're going to get. He's going to play single high. Like, he plays single high against a group of high schoolers if you let him. And so, like, he just is going to be who he is. I feel like that gives the Packers not an advantage necessarily, but at least it helps, because you know they're not going to do all this like disguising and trying to confuse, like, or blitz the daylights out of him, Brian Flores style. You're going to get what you're going to get, and you just have to out execute them.
And one thing, Malik Willis has been in the room to game plan for the Colts multiple times.
Exactly.
You know, like that is a team that he is familiar with. And you're right. The scheme is the scheme in Indy. It's not one of these disguise schemes where they want to move around. No, they're lining up and playing their stuff, and you got to beat them. And they're going to do their thing very well. So he has been in meetings with multiple different coaches of how to attack that specific defense. So if there's any opponent where Malik Willis would have familiarity and maybe feel a little bit more comfortable with what he's seeing, it would be a previous AFC South rival. So I think that does actually help things. And then similarly with Tennessee, Malik just played against that defense all offseason. So if you're the Packers, you're thinking, hey, this is not ideal. We did not want to play Malik Willis this early. But if we could pick 2 games to play back-to-back where Malik might be a little more comfortable than normal, it's 2 AFC South teams and the team that he just came from. So from that standpoint, I know the Packers, I'm not going to say you're fortunate because the Jordan Love injury is unfortunate, but from a Malik Willis standpoint, you're a little bit fortunate with the 2 games that he's going to have to play guaranteed.
Tyler, I knew this was going to be great. It was. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week. Locked on NFL every day with the Madman. Go check that out, guys. Ty, we appreciate the time, man.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Thanks to Tyler for joining the show. Great stuff from him. You heard him. He sounds pretty optimistic about what this Packers offense can do with Malik Willis because he believes, like the Packers do, in the talent. Matt LaFleur was asked today, hey, he's worked really hard. What can he give you? He said, we think Malik Willis can play at a high level, that he'll be ready to go. Now, he has to say that. But it sounds like he's learned the verbiage. He can spit out the plays. The question is he going to know the plays? Well, if you listen to Ty, he already knows the concepts. As long as he can put the words from the play that he's calling and go, oh, I know what that is. That's this other thing from my old Rolodex of plays. He'll be fine. All right, more tomorrow. Lily Zhao, and then our crossover Thursday interview coming on Friday. All of that still to come here on Locked On Packers. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Same thing with the podcast. The podcast you can also find on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, so you can stay Locked On Packers.